Welcome to Simply Fishing, featuring world-class angling. Hosted by Bob Mesacomer, 9-time world record holder. Simply Fishing is brought to you by Ranger Boats. Still built one at a time so you can fish hard, run strong, and rest easy. Shimano, Calcutta reels and Compre rods. Fish the best. Fish Shimano. Now, here's Simply Fishing with Bob Mesacomer.
Well, it's been ugly up where we've been being flat, calm, and sunny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're probably begging for this. And
exactly. I'd die to be on Lake of the Woods right now with this.
Yeah.
With these conditions, exactly. Give me that water temp. Give me these clouds. Give me some of my spots on the woods, and it's 50 inches coming in the boat. We had some friends on the houseboat, and I sent them all out the last day and marked them 5 spots each, all 50-inch spots.
Yep.
And one kid came back, got a 52.5, his biggest fish ever.
Wow.
And boy, was he ecstatic.
I bet.
Ate a jackpot on the surface, so.
Right. Oh, there's one.
Good fish. Can you handle that thing, big guy?
I think I can handle this little one. Little chunk.
Yeah, a little one, he says. Not a bad fish at all.
Ugh.
So we're gonna catch some more off this spot?
I hope so.
We'll get some 5s, eh?
I hope so.
Hi, everybody.
They
Tell you what, folks, I'm not in Canada right now. I'm not fishing muskies. I'm on a lake just outside a large metropolitan area in Minnesota, and I've got a gentleman friend of mine, Paul Newman, in the boat with me. Now, he's an extraordinary fisherman, fishes jigs and crankbaits on this lake almost exclusively. He's gonna take us around the lake, he's gonna show us some of the spots, and better yet, he's gonna teach us how he's catching these big fish out of the milfoil. Unfortunately, my request was to fish crankbaits. Paul did his homework, come back and says, we need to go jigging today. That's what we're doing. You have to do what the fish tell you to do, folks. You can't just arbitrarily throw a bait to catch a fish. Follow the fish, they'll tell you. I got Paul, I'm gonna follow him. He's gonna tell me, hey, Paul.
I'm gonna try.
Don't go anywhere, I guarantee you some large bass coming. I've got a torn rotary cup in my shoulder. I'm gonna see if I can get a fish in the boat. I know Paul's gonna get a boat load.
Years ago, I was fishing with one of the salesmen from the Minnetonka Boat Works when I used to work there. And we were throwing crankbaits in the North Arm Channel up against the sides of the steel. He snagged something, reels it up. It's one of them old, there's one. Oh, that's a fish.
A good one, huh?
I don't know, if it's a bass, it should be pretty big.
Oh,
there
yes,
it is.
nice
Oh,
fish.
she come off.
Oh, unbuttoned.
Oh, that was a better fish there. She started swimming sideways and taking off like that. I thought I might have hooked into a muskie.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Wow, she hit that hard. There's, oh man, was that a bite? Oh,
One got you in there, huh?
oh wow. Just about knocked my hand right off the reel. Let's see if she'll eat it again. There she is. Ah.
Now, I don't want to tell you, but I got a jig sitting
Oh,
there.
there we
It's
go.
a pig, too. Look at this.
Ah.
I had a jig sitting right next to yours when you did that.
Oh, there she is. There we go.
Nice fish.
Let me keep the trolling motor going here and keep you on the fish.
You're okay. We'll crawl back up there. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I got her hooked good. There we go. Oh, look at that belly.
Yes, that's a nice fish.
She's eating. Nice fish.
She ate that thing anyway.
Oh, wow, did she eat
And I
it?
had a jig sitting right next to you. It had to be within a foot, you know?
It's all luck. Yeah, you know, that's the funny thing. You can do that. You can drop it 1 foot here, nothing. 1 foot here, nothing, but right here, boom, you got them.
Yeah.
They're silly. They get in their little spots, their little holes in the grass, and they just sit there and wait for something to land on their nose. When they do, they're on it.
That one was.
Oh.
Plus, you missed the other one that came
I missed
around.
the other one about exactly the same spot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get us back up to it. When the sun's up on this one, I can just say, you know, I can get rid of the depth finder because you can really see the lay of the grass.
Yeah. Now with the overcast too, Paul, these fish are going to spread out a lot more. not necessarily cling to those edges on those openings? You'll find them spread out throughout the milfoil?
Well, they'll still live on their spots. They won't be quite as tight as they normally are, but the reason why they're on these particular spots in the grass is because of something on the bottom. So they're gonna stay real close to that. They're not gonna stray too far. If anything, what the clouds I think is gonna do to them is it brings them up a little bit further off of the bottom. They start looking around a little more. They're not necessarily just glued tight to the bottom like they would be in the hot sun.
That's something you're talking about, is what, sand, gravel?
Sand, gravel, rocks, any kind of a hard spot. You really got to use your electronics properly to determine what's a good milfoil spot and what isn't a good milfoil spot. You know, right now we're on a flat that's 30-40 acres of all milfoil. And these fish are really living only on a spot about the size of 2 of these boats here. And you could fish, it'd take you 3 days to fish this whole flat and never catch fish. So you really need to be able to pinpoint those hard bottom spots.
And that's why you're using your landmarks to pull in. I won't give the landmarks away, but you're using some of your landmarks to pull up on these spots and set the boat where you want it.
Yeah, you can keep seeing me turning around, looking over here, looking over there. Once I find my spots, I'll use triangulation. I'll use like a big tall tree and a window in the house, a flagpole on the chimney over there, things like that. Because they can, if you do your lining up properly, they can put you right on the spot instantaneously. It's kind of like, you know, built-in GPS.
I know I fished with other good fishermen on other systems. For instance, Ted Ruse up on Cass Lake in Minnesota. He does the same thing. He's got landmarks that are permanent, and they may be 5 miles from him, you know, or better on that lake. And he'll put that boat right on a spot, just like you're doing with these spots.
I get a lot of people asking me, well, do you use your GPS to mark your spots? And I really don't, because I don't need to. On a lake like this, we're close enough to shore at all times that it's very easy to, you know, pick a house and a tree. On big bodies, where it's tough to see shore, yeah, you're going to need to use the GPS. But on here, I can actually get myself onto my spots a lot quicker just visually.
Little photographic memory doesn't hurt either.
Exactly. Usually when I find a new spot, I got to fish it 3-4 times before I can remember my lineups. But once I fish it in a tournament and spent a couple hours on that spot, I'll never forget my lineups. I'm going to let us drift back this way a little bit here and get us back on the spot a little better. You know, fishing the grass like this, the most important thing, I've taken a lot of my friends out fishing out here that don't do a lot of bass fishing, and I keep constantly reminding them, make sure your bait gets to the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's tough to do in this stuff. The grass is so thick, it's real tough to, you know, get that bait down there. Those jigs are 3/4 of an ounce. A lot of times I'll go to a 1 ounce when the grass is real thick. We're kind of at a time of year where it's starting to thin out a little bit. But a lot of times I'll go to a 1 ounce. And if you notice, when I cast it out, I'll put the bait out real short distance from the boat, so I can fish it vertically.
Yeah.
Vertical is everything. But not only am I keeping the bait short distance from the boat, another thing I do is I pitch it out. When the bait hits water, I pull my rod back and I let slack line out.
So you're dropping it on slack?
Yep, and I just kind of sling the slack line out there, and I just watch the line fall. You know, and a lot of people think, well, you can't drop a bait down on slack line, you'll never feel a bite. But this braided line, it's so much sensitivity that you'll feel it, or else you'll at least see the line jump when the fish eats it. As long as you constantly stare at your line and watch it go down, you're either going to feel it or you're going to see it. But making sure it falls straight down and fishing it vertically and keeping it on is the key. Is keep it on the bottom and straight up and down.
So what I'm doing when I'm casting out, keeping my line tight, I've got a pendulum effect.
Exactly. That bait will hang up in the weeds. It wants to swing back at you, back towards the boat.
Yeah, and that's what I was finding.
It'll grab into the weeds.
Yeah. Same thing I was finding, because what I was doing, I'd throw it out there, but I could feel it hitting the weeds before it ever neared the bottom.
Yep, exactly. You just want to just lay slack line in the water, just watch it fall as that bait hits the bottom, and then I just reel up my slack line and work the bait.
I notice you don't work it very far. You get it out of there and reintroduce.
Well, yeah, exactly, because I'm not trying to cover water. Basically what I'm trying to do is drop the jig into one spot, shake it in that one spot, because the grass is so thick, there's no way I'm going to be able to move it at me.
Right.
So I just try to shake it a couple times in that one spot and, like you said, reintroduce. By being able to constantly put the bait back in the water and recasting is how you cover your water.
Yeah, this is a different style for me. Even when I jig fish, when I'm out, I got a good friend, like I said, Pete Davids. When he and I are out fishing, we fish a jig weed line, cabbage, not this. So what you do is you pull up into that cabbage and break it through.
Yeah.
You know. But this is totally different. This is milfoil fishing, which is really different.
Well, I learned how to fish a jig in the milfoil. This is where I first started fishing a jig. This is how I was taught how to do it. And then when I got to lakes that didn't have milfoil, that have the cabbage and the coontail, I started fishing it this way. Vertical fishing it, and I find it works as just as effective in that kind of grass as it does here. In fact, I rarely find myself ever casting a jig to the weed edge anymore. I always try to sit right on top of it and vertical fish that jig almost. Make them short pitches, get the bait straight down there, and try to work that jig vertical. I think you get a little better presentation out of the jig by popping it vertically off that bottom. I think it entices the fish a little better.
Well, it's like in our muskie fishing. There are certain things you do which will provoke some sort of an ignition from the fish.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, there are times that you've got guys in the boat with you that don't know that how to utilize or present that little idiosyncrasy that makes it work, and consequently you'll be taking fish out like you're doing to me. Same thing, you know. I'll have a guy muskie fishing and I'll feel really guilty. I'll have 5, 6 muskies and he'll have none, and I'm going, man, he's doing almost is the operative, same thing.
Almost is right, and I think a lot of that getting from the almost to exactly it is in the mind. You can tell somebody 100 times or show somebody 100 times how to do something, and until you actually kind of experience it for yourself and get the confidence in that, it's all confidence, you're not going to have any success.
Right, exactly. I agree with you. Fishing is a big confidence sport.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's be honest about it. We got a surface of a lake here. Our eyes can't penetrate anything more than about 2 or 3 inches of this water. So everything we do is in total confidence. Our presentation, where we're throwing it, what we're throwing, everything relies on confidence. And I can see you're pretty confident.
Absolutely. I know I'm going to catch one here. As soon as I line that steeple up with the edge of the building, my line's going to go thump.
And I know on that fish that my lure was no more than a foot away from yours.
Absolutely.
No more.
I got the edge on you, though. This is all I ever do.
Well, you know, I mean, this is why we're doing what we're doing, Paul. I gotta be honest with you. I mean, I fish bass. I throw crankbaits, throw spinnerbaits. I do smallmouth, do all of that. But there are techniques and there are ways and times to apply certain techniques. And like I talked to you at the sports show, I want to get inside the head of Paul Newman. I want to get out here and have the viewers understand these idiosyncrasies, what you're talking about, how to manage that loose line, how to set that lure in the mouth of the fish, you know? These are things that
There's one.
There you go. See, it's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's a big
it's
fish.
Big fish. Look at this fish,
This is a
folks.
giant. This fish has got a head like a bucket.
Yeah, I'll hold the trolling motor. Go ahead.
You got the boat?
Yeah, go ahead. I got the boat.
Oh, this fish has got a big face.
Yeah. It's exactly what we're talking. That's what the audience is
There
going to
she
do
is.
right there.
Oh, look at that one.
Gorgeous fish.
She's got a head on her.
5 of those at the scale, you're taking home a paycheck.
Absolutely. Oh, that is a gorgeous fish. Huge gut, huge mouth. She just swallowed that jig.
And I don't want to tell you, but you said, I'm going to line up the steeple and the whatever it was.
Yep, the steeple and the tower, and my line was going to jump, and there it was.
Get bit, and there it is.
There
and
it is.
That's all part of that same confidence factor. You know where that bald spot is. You know where those fish are. You've been there a number of times.
She got me wet.
And you're going to go back there a number of times more, I guarantee you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, take the trolling motor and put us back in there.
That was fun.
Oh, that was a nice fish.
Let's do that again.
That was a nice fish.
This is by far my favorite way to fish. If I don't have a, it doesn't matter where I'm fishing. If I got, I've always got a jig tied on.
Yeah.
I love jig fishing. If I can fish it in the weeds and fish it this way, this is my bread and butter. This is, everybody's got their favorite way to fish, favorite thing to do, and this is mine.
Yeah.
And that, just because it is my favorite way to fish, is it takes my confidence level from here all the way up to here, just because it's my favorite thing to do.
Well, it shows. I mean, it shows. I mean, I will tell you that fishing behind a good bass fisherman is the worst thing in the world to do. Because you guys that do what you do and do it on a regular basis, you're hard to beat. There's no question about it.
Let's get that mindset going.
Yeah.
There's a bite. I think I got a little one.
Yeah.
Yep. Good bite. Even these little ones, you don't know
Nope, you
until
don't.
after you get a hook and get them coming up, what you got on, because these little guys bite just as hard as the big ones. Sometimes harder.
I agree.
Some of the biggest fish I've ever caught, I've never felt the bite.
No, you just feel weight.
Yep. Probably because they're got pretty good at eating growing up to get to that big, and they're pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Just kind of slowly letting us drift back.
Yeah.
Kind of through where we caught some of those fish, I pulled us ahead of them a little bit.
It's deeper on this side, huh?
Yes, it's deeper on our right.
Okay.
What we got to our left is a point that comes off the reef, and it kind of hooks out in front of us, and be deeper on our right, shallower out there. That's back enough, I think.
And there's a fish. And no power to hit this thing at all. I hope that hook's sharp.
Nice fish.
You see how soft I had to hit that? Slow down,
Oh,
sweetheart.
there's one.
You too, huh?
Yep. I think we found him. Get over here. Whoa, 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 hey there. He's not that big, but he's got strength. There. Get the boat straight here. It's not a bad one.
Yeah. What do you do to your jig that's special? Anything special you're doing with that jig?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I do.
While you're talking, I'm going to put the boat back up there.
Let me put this fish away here, and I'll show you what I like to do. Couple things that I like to do is right now my chunk is all in a major ball here. What bass like to do to it. But one of the biggest things I do is I use my plastic chunks. I like to use plastic rather than pork, just because you don't dry out over the day and things like that. But what I do is I super glue my chunk on my jig. See, like right now, I can't pull it away from the skirt there. That allows me more fish per jig chunk. But what it also really does is, you see how much I shake that jig in the grass?
Yeah.
It keeps my plastic right on the jig.
Keeps from coming
If I
off.
keep shaking and shaking and shaking, and finally ends up start hanging down at the bottom of the hook, I like to hook my jig chunk actually like a worm. In fact, here, let me dig out a new one here for you, and I'm going to show you how I do it.
You just tell me if I'm physically lined up where I need to be. You just tell me if I'm physically
You're lined up good. You
lined
probably are you? What's the depth finder still grass or nothing?
Nothing.
Okay, you should have a fish then. All of a sudden the depth finder showed nothing, and we caught those two fish.
Okay.
So they were like right here, because mine came like right in here somewhere. So maybe drift back just a touch.
Alrighty. Well, maybe I can catch another one while you're showing the audience how to rig that thing.
One thing I do with my chunks, instead of a pork chunk, you generally just poke it through like that, hook it on, and there you go. That pork is strong enough that it'll do this, but with a jig chunk, it's going to tear off. And one of the things I don't like about that also is it makes us an extremely long bait. I don't like the length. I like to have it very short and compact of a bait. So what I will do is I'll thread my chunk on like a worm. It holds better. I'll thread it right up through the center of the worm, or through the chunk, and out the back of it. Something I do that's real different though is you have the real thin layer that I'm rubbing with my finger now. I'll poke the chunk back through. So I'm kind of double hooking it. You can see the hook come out and then back through. That keeps this from twisting on there for me. I'll slide her all the way up. Now that keeps the jig a little more compact. I get a nice bulky, short and bulky look to it that moves a lot of water. The fish can sense it and feel it, and then it's nice and short. They can get the whole bait in their mouth when they eat it. But I'll slide it all the way up on there, up tight up against the skirt, and then it holds on much tighter than if you just poked it through like piece of pork. And that's about what I like to do.
But that's a trick in itself that'll put more fish in the boat for you. Because you're constantly, go ahead, take the front.
All right.
You're constantly catching fish as opposed to rigging stuff all the time.
Exactly. It's just time saving. You know, you hear so much about fishing tournaments, about things that save time. You know, I'm not so concerned about saving time tournament-wise, but just I want to keep catching fish.
Keep the lure in front of the fish.
Yeah, 'cause when the fish are biting, I want that bait in there. I mean, you saw how quickly earlier when you missed that fish and then I caught another one, I was jumping over consoles in the boat, put a new chunk on my jig, and I was back in there again. I didn't want to waste a minute. There's that edge of the grass. They're hanging right on the edge of the grass next to the rocks down there.
I got a lot of good friends, as do you, that fish tournaments. You know, Dion Hibden, Guido Hibden.
Yep.
You know, Shaw Grigsby, Denny Brower, David Fritz. And it always amazes me when these guys come to the scale, they walk across the scale and they go, had 6 bites today, caught 5. And I'm going, how in the world can you be that proficient? Because those guys really are that proficient.
When you get into a tournament fishing is really interesting because you fish a lot differently than you would when you're just out fishing.
Yeah.
Because this lake's, you know, a little different. There's so many fish in here, and any bite you get can always be the right size fish you need to win the tournament. But there's a lot of instances where you can have a pattern where you can go out and catch 30 fish in a day.
Yeah.
But you're not going to win the tournament.
Right.
There might be another pattern you got to go do.